Sharna. How are you going?
Good, good. How's it going?
Yeah, pretty good.
Good.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you a few questions.
Sure.
So Cricket Club Cafe has been around for how many years now?
Nearly 30 years.
Wow, that's huge.
Yeah,
That's
long
really
time.
impressive, especially in like the hospitality industry today. Running a cafe is equal parts art and business. So what was your biggest learning curve, do you think, in running Cricket Club?
I think just opening a business in Sri Lanka. I mean, hospitality in Australia is so different to doing business in Sri Lanka. So even having been in the industry for so long, it was such a learning curve and a positive one at that. You know, we really enjoyed learning the differences in cultures and how they do business in hospitality. So it was a wonderful learning curve, really.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Did you find anything specifically tough when you were starting out?
No, not really. Well, the only thing I guess is with the different cultures and having to involve yourself not only in a workday kind of thing with your staff, but on a personal level as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of that, trying to find the fine line between it.
Yeah. But it was fun. You know, I have some lovely staff working for us who have been with us for a long time.
Yeah, that's amazing.
But yeah, going through all their differences at home and things, it's been fun to help them out, to tell you honestly. Yeah. So Sharna, you know, cafe culture in Sri Lanka is evolving rapidly. How do you balance staying unique?
Well, there's lots of trends and stuff that happen obviously abroad, but I think you have to figure out what trends land well here locally, and not everything does. So it's kind of trying to figure out how do you stay relevant in terms of branding and in terms of the space itself. Trying new things is always something that we do, but it's a lot of trial and error. Like sometimes things work well, sometimes it doesn't, and it's just an ever evolving process, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know. How do you balance work and home life with everything?
That's the $1 million question. It's quite tough to balance them both. I think the biggest thing I had to do early on was sort of map out my boundaries personally and professionally.
Yeah.
And basically just know that I had to devote a certain amount of time and energy in the beginning to building the business up. As it's gone on, especially over the years, I mean, the last few years have been really quite tough. And I've definitely poured more love and energy into the business, you know, to help move things along. But definitely trying to create that sort of work-life balance. I mean, for you also, it must be quite a big thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It you know, when you have kids growing up in Sri Lanka, trying to balance the workload and, you know, being relevant to your family as well, and not getting stuck here 24/7 is
tough.
You know, it's tough. Yeah. So no, but it's.
So you said that it's been around, Cricket Club has been around for 25 years. So what has been, do you think, the key to keeping it relevant?
I think the key to keeping it relevant is, I don't know, I suppose, you know, cricket is for everyone.
Yeah.
Cricket's not exclusive to any group or religion or this or that. So I think when we first opened the cafe, we really wanted to make sure it was for everyone.
Yeah.
And not exclusive to just a few. So I think that's helped us keep relevant. And of course, we attract people from all over the world that want to come and see the Museum of Cricket.
Yes.
Because we do feature every Test playing nation.
Yeah.
So I guess that's been kind of the easy part for us in staying relevant.
Yeah. And cricket's a great game. I mean, for me as well, I'm like super into it. So I think in terms of like, I've noticed all the memorabilia that you have around the place. So how long have you spent collecting all of that?
More than 35 years, yeah. So when the teams visit, we you know, that a lot of them will sign jerseys and give it to us. But we knew we could do this in Sri Lanka because Sri Lankans really appreciate cricket.
Loving, yeah.
Absolutely. And they just beat the Aussies in the one-day series, which is a plus point for Sri Lanka.
Happy about that.
Yeah, I am a little bit happy about that, yes. Makes the staff a lot happier when they work.
Gabby, so if you could start over and build Cricket Club from scratch today, what would you do differently?
What would I do differently? The only thing I'd do differently is try and stay younger longer. Because hospitality is not a 9 to 5 job.
No.
It is a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And if I could wind back the years so I can keep running up and down stairs and things, that would be the only thing I could change.
Yeah,
Put myself in a time machine and go backwards.
In a capsule, yeah. No, definitely. It's sort of like the long game, right? It's a hard slog in hospitality.
Yeah.
But I think obviously you've done amazing to be able to last, so long in this industry, and especially with the last few years, what it's brought for the hospitality industry.
Yeah, absolutely.
In particular.
I'm hoping we've paved the way for everyone.
Yes.
Because
Absolutely.
we love having other cafes around. The more, the merrier.
Yeah.
Because it's more produce and everything that's available to all of
Yes.
us. And hospitality is the sort of thing that, all people in hospitality really stick together, because you never know when you need help from someone.
Yeah, true. That's very true.
And at Café Kumbuk, your staff there, do you have both females and males working?
Yes. So, I guess the hospitality industry in Sri Lanka is quite male dominated, which I'm sure you found
We
as
have,
well.
yes.
But we are seeing more women now coming through in terms of, front of house positions in the kitchen, which is amazing. And as a female owner, I'm always wanting more women in the workforce. And it's nice to see that we've got a few currently who have come back from abroad, and it's really nice and a very wholesome experience having a balance of both genders in the cafe.
Yeah, absolutely. I would have loved to have had both male and female.
Do you mostly have?
We only have males.
I guess cricket is
there. Yeah. I would have loved to have females in the workforce with us, being a foreign female and working with a lot of females abroad.
Yeah.
But yeah, we would have really loved to have had more females work with us.
But I mean, now even with the Sri Lankan cricket team, and the women are doing so well, so maybe this is your chance to kind of get more women who are interested in the sport.
We'll keep working at it, and hopefully we can get some. And I guess, we're here with Eva today to talk about, women's health and reproductive health and that type of thing. So the biggest thing I want to talk about probably with women is, you have these coming out parties for when girls become of a certain age, which doesn't happen in my culture.
In Australia, no.
In Australia, yeah. So tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, I think to be honest, I don't know a whole lot about it, but I would say that it seems to be like sort of a traditional thing, a cultural thing where we celebrate a woman's coming of age or, attainment of age. So it's something that, when you look at it from that perspective, it's quite amazing that we celebrate that part of their lives.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Because like we were just saying, most of the boys in the cricket club would often come to me and say, oh, look, I need this weekend off because we're celebrating the coming out of... Which is really a wonderful thing, and that we don't do anywhere else. And
I think in a lot of ways it is... It is still a taboo subject, and it is...
which I find amazing, that you have these parties, but still it's a taboo subject.
Yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? That we celebrate that, but we don't really talk about it so openly sometimes. I know having women in the cafe in my workforce, they find it sometimes a little bit challenging to come and say to us, okay, I've got my period, so I'm not able to, do X, Y, and Z. And so I think we have to try and keep the conversation open and also talk more about menstrual health so it becomes a more comfortable subject.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And speaking of menstrual health, for me growing up in Australia and I went to an all-girls school, we were told by our PE teacher that even if it was that time of the month, we still had to participate in sports.
Yeah.
Which is what I would encourage in the hospitality industry here as well for females, is that, it can only help you the more you move around and do exercise. I guess the less cramps, the less headaches.
Yeah.
If you just sit at home and mope about it.
No, it can be quite challenging to do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So for us, it was always, no, you've got to get up and at it.
Yeah.
It can just only help you,
definitely.
with that time of the month.
I think it's something that we also as female, business owners have to kind of encourage more of and talk about, I think, as well. Make it known that, it is okay to take regular breaks and things like that. But it's also great for you if you can still be active and, and still do your job. I don't think it's sometimes seen as a sickness, right?
Yeah. Which, I mean, look, it can be a bit dilapidating sometimes, with the cramps and things.
For sure.
But I feel like being active all the time kind of helps you.
Definitely,
Which I guess a lot of people don't realise.
No.
I think the norm is just to go home and take a couple of Panadol and lay down. I think the more active you are, the more
better.
You can, the better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, menstrual health isn't often discussed in this industry.
Yeah.
Have you ever noticed a lack of awareness or support for women that working in kitchens or cafes? I know that you don't have a lot of women in the workforce, but do you feel like there's more that can be done to kind of spread awareness?
Absolutely. There's a lot more that can be done to spread awareness. I find in female toilets in any hotels or restaurants, I think a lack of, products available. I think companies in Sri Lanka could put, machines in their
vending machines
in their bathrooms. To really address, what is a taboo subject here.
Yeah, I think like little things like sanitary bins, being able to make those readily available in public toilets or in, the bathrooms of our cafes and restaurants. I think that's so important. I remember going to Park Street one day and seeing that there was a restaurant there that actually had pads on the side so that women could pick them up. And I think that's just a great way for people to feel, or women to feel more comfortable.
Absolutely.
And also for men as well to be able to be more supportive of women at those times,
Yeah, I guess that there's a lot around, men not being as supportive as in the past. Definitely when I was growing up. We just had to deal with everything ourselves. But no, I would love more awareness out there and not the taboo around purchasing the products or things like that.
Yeah, I've seen some great ads recently as well where they're showing, boyfriends and husbands going out and picking up the pads and things like that. So I think it is becoming more of a comfortable subject for everybody across the board. I think there's still a lot of work to be done, especially in like the rural areas and things like that. But I think we're changing and breaking the taboo around the subject now.
Absolutely, and definitely, when you go outstation, you always find you have to have yourself really organised if it is that time of the month, because you're not sure in the villages along the way whether it's available. Which is what it was like when I started coming to Sri Lanka 30 years ago and travelling out of Colombo. You really had to prepare.
For sure.
So I think a lot can be done with making more, more products available out in the rural areas.
Yeah, definitely. The food industry is full of challenges. And I want to know, what was your sort of ride the wave moment where you had to push through adversity and that you came out stronger on the other side of it?
I guess when we first opened, I found Sri Lankans didn't book to come to restaurants. And I remember one particular day when our boys said, it's like Perahera today. And I'm like, what do you mean by Perahera? Because I hadn't seen the Perahera either in Kandy or Colombo with the elephants parading down the street. And the boys said, no, Perahera. Today was like Perahera. We were absolutely slammed in the cafe. And I think that was a ride the wave moment for us, that we knew we could do it, when we were put under pressure and we came through the other side and all the boys performed. It was kind of a real icebreaker for us. It's like, yes, we can do this. That definitely was a ride the wave moment when we were absolutely slammed and we came out the other side and everyone was really happy, really happy. How about yourself, Sharna? Like, what is your ride the wave moment?
I think probably the last few years being the most challenging, especially with, just the inconsistency of the tourism industry, working through things like power cuts without, a generator and stuff like that. Those things you may not find elsewhere in the world so much, but having gone through it, especially after the pandemic back to back, it was a lot of pressure.
Absolutely. I don't think there was anyone in the hospitality industry that
Who wasn't
didn't
affected.
face. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
We had buses parked out the front during the financial crisis when we didn't have fuel, which meant people couldn't come into the cafe. So yeah, it was.
It's a lot. I mean, I think Sri Lanka is not for the faint-hearted. And so if you're running a business, especially in the food industry, you have to be ready to kind of navigate all those bumpy roads.
Absolutely.
But for me, that's the ride the wave moment. It's not just one moment.
One moment.
It's a lot of moments that have happened over the last 10 years.
But you really figure out who you are, I think.
100%,
Once you ride those waves of, ebbs and flows, I think you do really find out
for sure
who you are
and your strength.
your strength.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yeah, no, really cool. Many young women in the work and hospitality industry struggle for accessibility. Do you have that problem as well?
I think
with products.
We probably don't see it as much within our workforce immediately, but it's definitely something that we've looked into. We've worked with a company called Free to Flow, sort of a non-profit who are collecting pads and sending it out to some of the villages and the more rural areas. So we've done like those sort of pad collections and things like that, which has been really successful.
Fantastic.
Like people really want to get involved and they want to, men and women both, they want to come and drop it off and help in any way they can.
Maybe more of us should get together in the hospitality industry and try and work on this together.
For sure, I think so. I think there are definitely improvements to be made and more things that we can be doing as business owners to make the conversation a little bit wider.
Yeah.
I feel like one thing that I would like to implement is putting pads in the bathrooms.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure we have a proper sanitary bin.
Yeah.
And also just maybe bringing together the male and female employees to have a wider conversation about this topic.
Yeah.
So that we kind of make it understood that it's not just a female problem and it's not a problem. It's something that we naturally have to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, fantastic. Yeah.
Gabby, so do you run the cricket club on your own or you're with your partner, or how does it work for you?
Yeah, so it's both my husband and I.
Okay.
We came over and started the cricket club together. Which has been an amazing ride. But working with your husband is, it's... A lot of people ask me, how do you work with your husband?
Yeah.
And I said, well, I can't imagine...
I want to know, actually, how do you?
Well, I think when you're both in the hospitality industry, you understand, you have a level of understanding of how things should be run. But how to get to the end product, sometimes we have different ideas about that, which is great. I'm a real bull at a gate type person. He's there pulling the reins, going, no, we can't. But we always end up at the end solution together.
That's amazing.
But I can't imagine not working with him.
Yeah. Once you do, I think it's hard to kind of think about being able to do that with anyone else. Yeah.
And we have our particular jobs, so we don't do the same job. We divide and conquer, if I could call it that.
Yeah.
Gabby by name, Gabby by nature. So I do most of the chatting with all the guests, and he's the figures guy. He does all the...
So you kind of you have your own special
strengths.
Areas that you and strengths that you bring to the table.
Yeah.
Do you have any funny stories that you want?
I do. I mean, now that we've been on the subject about menstrual health, things have changed over the years. My husband would never enter into a conversation with me about, menstrual cycles and things like that. We just kind of kept that very on the lowdown. But, the funny part is his father was a doctor.
Okay.
And to think that he couldn't talk about that sort of thing, even though he has a father in the medical profession, I found really amusing. But I think things have changed in that for us as well after having a daughter. He quite comfortably now talks to her when she's not feeling so great. And I'm like, hang on a minute. Why didn't we have this conversation, But he never kind of, I think things have changed and there isn't the taboo there that we didn't talk about when I wasn't feeling so great and couldn't run the cafe or, wasn't really feeling up to it, and you just kind of put on a brave face and carry on.
And get on with it,
Whereas the younger generation, our daughter will always talk to my husband about it and say, oh no, I can't do this, I'm not feeling so great. And he would have a very long, in-depth conversation with her, which I think's fantastic, So there has been taboos around this, even in our culture, and I know it certainly has been in Sri Lankan culture, with males not discussing these things. But I feel like things are moving forward and progressing, because our daughter would have learnt this in school in Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
That it was okay to talk to her father about these things.
And then it goes on from there.
And then it goes on from there. Yeah. In regards to your menstrual health, when you talk about that, do you freely talk about that with your husband?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think because I was brought up abroad as well, it has always been something that we've learned about in school. We've been able to openly talk about it with our family and with other people around us. It's definitely, I can see why it could be considered sometimes, you know, embarrassing to be able to say it to someone, or, you know, I'm on my period or something like that.
Yeah.
But I think the more we do that and the more we get out of our comfort zone, the easier it all becomes. And it normalizes, exactly.
Normalizes.
Yeah.
No, great. Yeah. Okay, so my personal opinion is, you know, with women's menstrual health, you know, I found it really amazing when I first came to Sri Lanka, and we kind of touched on this during the podcast, that, you know, females have coming out parties in Sri Lanka. So there really isn't a taboo around it when fathers are willing to celebrate with their daughters with their coming out parties. So that's where I would like to see things move forward in Sri Lanka with regard to women's menstrual health. I think if we're having the party, we've got to continue the story and continue engaging with our daughters.
I'd like to see the conversation extend beyond the workplace. I'd like to see women be able to openly talk about menstrual health, especially with their male counterparts. And I think, you know, it's such a natural part of our lives as women, and we shouldn't have to feel embarrassed or, you know, shamed by any of it. It's definitely something that we need to learn how to celebrate.